May 2026 has already come and almost gone, so it is time for another roundup of the miniature art pieces that I have enjoyed this month. This is our 5th roundup of the year, and I've tried to find pieces that perhaps you haven't seen, but hopefully will enjoy. If you like any of the pieces, please let me know in the comments. If you have a favourite piece, please also let me know. And again, you can like and subscribe to this, and you can hit the little bell for notifications if you want to know about any other videos that I do. I am attempting to do 12 of these this year, and possibly a roundup at the end of the year too. So, without further ado, let's just crack on with the models. We begin with Chris, aka the Painting Koala, hot off the back of his gold and silver wins in standard at this year's MPO. He finished these Range Troopers a few weeks ago and they really caught my eye. The combination of lovely purples in the shadows plus the greeny off-white for the highlights makes these stand out and are actually a great example of white armour done well. Chris has recently detailed his technique over on his new blog for this armour recipe, and the trick here really is not to go up to pure white first of all. Basically, if you're painting white armour and you want to edge highlight it or you weather it in any way, you're going to need some of that top end of the value range to be able to do those highlights with pure white or almost white. So your actual white armour should really be a light grey at the most, and the trick is getting everything else working in tandem so that it feels white. I'm also a big fan of the tan leather jackets here and the red stripe detail on the helmets. Super work on these, and from the process pictures, I think they came together reasonably quickly too. Roxana, aka Roxanadu_hobby, who is actually operations director at Verco's Vault out in Vegas, has created this new piece. The figure is Rhiannon from Owlsome Creations, and Roxana's version is super nice. The warm highlight tones on the front, the soft armour rendering, lovely purples in the shadows, flashes of blue from the front, and really nice spots of magenta hold this all together wonderfully. The blade of the sword has some amazing ground reflections in it, as well as coming off very clearly as some sort of polished metal. And then turn it around and you have this vibrant blue light from behind, giving it a cold feel, and then looking especially nice on the back of the leg armour. You can combine that with some lovely cast shadows from the sword into the back of the cape, and this is really a nice piece of work. Okay, next up is Ki Yeol Yoon, which, forgive me if that's wrong, I believe they are Korean, but I had to do a bit of digging to figure that out, so forgive me if that is completely off the mark. Now, it was actually September last year they finished this, but I discovered it this month, so I'm putting it in here, and I get to make the rules. So I think this piece is called Hellboy Ghost Company, which explains the patch on the soldier's shoulder, but this one caught my eye for one reason: the goggles. Well, that's not quite right. I mean, it's incredible everywhere, and I love the model and the whole sci-fi military feel, but specifically I was drawn to the reflection in the goggles, which manages to set more of a scene entirely through the reflection. That then had me enjoying all of the things like armour weathering and the fabric and the strapping textures and the glow from the sword and so on. But I especially also like the subtlety in the value and the hue on the dark metal around the back of the model, and I really appreciate that black up to kind of mid-grey blue that's being used there, and then those flashes of almost mint green on the connectors and the caps. I think that all works well without overpowering everything. Alright, now we have Mulgoth the Cleaver from Muller Miniatures, or Lenny to his friends. This is a different take on the Darkwater model, and I think Lenny has done a wonderful job here. Firstly, the snow, the frost and those cool tones, the ice and everything set the vibes really nicely, and there are some lovely details, things like the shield beneath the ice. I think using violet purple for the skin makes this a bit more otherworldly too, and you have that nice pairing of purple and yellow with the skin and the gold tinged armour kind of working together. You throw in some darker warm tones on the axe and some vibrant patina on that armour, and all of the colours sit really nicely here. You'll also notice the value going up as you follow the arm or the horns towards that head, helmet kind of facial area, which helps keeps the eye looking at the right places. So great work here. Okay, let's get whimsical for a minute, hot off the heels of Holly, aka Monopolite's Green Tea Marine and her Monster Marine. We also have the Iron Brew Marine. And as a Scot, I have to appreciate this. Of course, the freehand iron and brew on the pauldrons gives it away, but I wonder how quickly I'd have got this had those or the can not been in the background. Orange and blue is a pretty wild colour combination, and although not necessarily wrong, they're both pretty vibrant, strong colours here, which works if you're trying to entice kids to buy some fizzy juice off the shelf, but probably doesn't do you a power of favours in the grim darkness of the far future where there is only war. But practicalities aside, the paint job is spot on. Good, solid, rich colours, tight highlighting, and that gradient from dark to light blue on the chainsword is super lovely. Great work, Holly. Now, we are in the era where Geppettos are starting to trickle in. One of Lucas Pina's, aka Spira Mirabilis' more recent sculpts. This one gives us plenty leather and wooden texture to work with, and this version from French painter Sébastien Paubion, aka Ours Paint, really knocks it out of the park. I think I was drawn initially to how clean everything was, but I do love a good gradient, and Sébastien has worked a lot of warm tones and pleasing gradients into both the puppet and the leather apron, as well as leaning towards gold and yellow highlights across the model. Once I was drawn in, it was great to explore things like the skin textures, the pop of green from Jiminy Cricket, the story being told here about an in-progress paint job, and of course the cat perched on his shoulder. Everything works nicely here together, and I think the choice of natural wood for the plinth helps that story even further. Now, I've seen some great Geppettos so far, but this is my favourite. I might need to think outside the box when I get round to painting mine. Okay, from one Sébastien to another, this is Sébastien Archer, aka Veiled Lamps piece, Ahab's Revenge. Now, this mini is a custom sculpt by Sébastien, I believe, and not only do I think the sculpt is cracking, I love that plaid collar. It really speaks to my inner Scotsman again. The colours here are somehow varied and in a sense vibrant, but at the same time kind of muted and sort of desaturated, and there's a certain duality that I like about that. Obviously, I am a sucker for the sci-fi elements here, but this feels more like a pirate theme than anything from a sci-fi universe, and again there's a contrast in topic outside of what is a wonderful paint job. Obviously bonus points for the seagull critter inclusion, and it's nice to see the water base, which doesn't necessarily involve a resin pour. The real treat is actually on the reverse, where you can see an amazing freehand coupled with all those barnacles on the cloak. Also, I don't want to kid you here, but this isn't a 75mm piece as it might look like. This is tiny. Look at that. Be honest, how much did that throw you when I put this picture up? Alright, another new discovery for this month. This is Australian painter Matt, who goes by Master of None Models on Instagram. Now, I don't always go in for the Machine and Krieger models, despite sort of really fitting into that sci-fi mech niche that I'm a fan of. I think there's something about them that feels a little bit unknown to me. However, this piece gives me more. It's no longer a piece of obscure military tech where I don't know what the story is, but it's become this abandoned mech which has been commandeered by, I don't know, a homeless person or someone who's after a bit of shelter or someone who's just looking for a selfie. But the clothing, the inclusion of the mobile phone, that gives us an era and suddenly gives me a reference point for this thing in terms of both time and scale. Now you throw in some weathering, some graffiti, you give it a timeline, and yeah, it's all coming together nicely. Oh, and the orange. Yeah, I'm absolutely sold on this one. I think this is great work from Matt. Next up is Kieran with his Bronze Masters winning Nyria Whisper Step from Arno Miniatures. Having been fortunate enough to see this one on hand, this is a super nice piece. I think it's deceivingly simple now, as that is to say that it's not a massively detailed or complex model necessarily, but it lends itself very well to a high level of painting since you have surfaces to play with and explore, and I think Kieran has absolutely smashed it with this. First of all, the vibrancy is unreal. It jumps off the shelf, so it's immediately eye-catching with those super saturated colours. The skin has got dark purples, deep vibrant reds, right through up through peach tones, and even actually something as simple as the cloak has these dark blue shadows through green mid-tones up to super nice blue-green teal highlights. The bodice purple has a nice echo of the shadow that you're getting in the skin, but really grounds the piece because it goes right down to a very dark purple towards the bottom, and then you've got the light here which reads as white but is actually, I guess, light blue and violet. That brings the attention upwards. And then you've got a nice bit of texture work on the straps. You've got that gold button right in the middle. It's lovely work start to finish. And let's also not forget some very well placed cast shadows too. I'm looking forward to seeing what's next from Kieran, aka Ghost Paint Killer. Okay, now for something a bit different again, we have Emma Rose's entry into this month's Get Good Painting Challenge, which is reptiles themed. Now, Emma is already a rather talented illustrator, so it's really nice to see her give some focus to miniature painting, and as one of what I think is her first pieces, this is a real cracker. No ambiguity about what's going on here. It's an alligator underwater. I'm assuming alligator because of the overbite and the rounded snout, but semantics aside, obviously the key feature here is that caustic refraction. They have been expertly done on top of a wonderfully textured and varied set of browns and greens, and even seeing the refraction lines fade away in the areas where the model becomes vertical, where that wouldn't hit, gives this a whole lot of realism. You can also see some lovely bounce light underneath the gator's belly and the cheeky little air bubble on the snout, which is all selling that underwater theme. Honestly, I think this one gets 10 out of 10 for me on atmosphere alone, but yeah, such a strong contender. Our penultimate mini this month comes from Steve Inglis, who goes by Kalukuk or Kaluk UK on Insta, and he's got a silver medal winning Farsight which he took to MPO this year in Bristol. This one for me is sublime. The reds are particularly excellent, and there are a couple of things I really love about the red in particular. First, the almost NMM style of the reds on things like the shoulder pad, the value variation and the vibrancy and the shadows and the mid-tones, and that decision to go extra bright with the edges without leaning into yellow or pink. And secondly, I guess keeping the value high on those edges means you can safely explore pink or light peach without feeling like you're going to end up shifting the overall hue of the piece. So it's a clever way to highlight red by keeping those highest value highlights very, very thin and crispy. I think the white helmet has also been done very well too, and leaning into warm grey greens for the sword works, and also look how much texture and warm variation there is in the base. Something very real feeling about that rock. Now, I've tried to paint this model and I actually gave up after a while. I actually ended up buying a second one because I feel like I mucked it up so much. So this has actually inspired me to give it another go. Thank you, thanks for that, Steve. Lastly this month we have Sergio Martin Moreno with his brilliant Votan squad. This piece, obviously inspired by the Codex cover, brings us loads of greeny blue cool tones. It is a tight composition, but I think that gives it a good bit of momentum. Compositionally, the pieces are all pointing in the same way too, which adds to that left to right movement. I really like the light armour highlights and the blue guns. as well as that lovely teal on the leader at the back, which seems to also be echoed in the arms of the three guys at the front. And then you've got splashes of gold in various places, and there's a nice bright blue glow at the front of the base. I would love to be able to see this in hand one day, because I get the impression there's so much more to enjoy here from other angles, and I suspect there's some lovely micro texture happening in places which is just a little harder to see in the photograph. Either way, top work from Sergio. Thank you to all the artists who I have featured this month. Keep doing what you're doing. It's great to see everybody producing miniature art every month. It becomes more and more joyful for me to look through Instagram, knowing that I can feature some of these pieces at the end of each month. Once again, like and subscribe if you're into that sort of thing. It really helps me with the channel. And yeah, until next time, go finish something.